Chess for Children. We make children smarter.
Hello, Chess for Children kids. It's me, Mr. C, and today's subject will be Rook and Knight Checkmate.
Chess for children, kids. So much fun, you'll split a rib. Summer, winter, fall, we'll checkmate them all with a chess for children, kids.
The Rook and Knight Checkmate. Hello, Chess for Children kids. This is National Master Steve Colding, and today's subject is checkmate with rooks and knights. There are basically 4 types of checkmates that you can do with a rook and a knight. So if you have a rook and a knight and a few other things, these checkmates may be possible. Number 1 is Anastasia's mate. Number 2 is the Arabian checkmate. Number 3 is the corner checkmate. And number 4 is the hook checkmate. These are all done when you have a rook and a knight. Number 1, Anastasia's mate. Anastasia's mate comes from a book called Anastasia and the Chess Game, written by William Heinz in 1803. It's a story about a little girl and how she beats her uncle in the game, and this is the mate that she uses. This is the starting pattern of Anastasia's mate. Take a few minutes if you're so inclined and see if you can solve it. Stop the video and look. It is check white to move and checkmate in 3. Now let's look. We have, how many squares does the king have? It has 2 squares, G8 and H8. Well, our knight can take away one of those squares, and it's being attacked, so it's a good idea. So knight to E7 check takes away the square G8, so the king comes here. Now, let's look at the position. A useful question you always ask is, what's stopping the checkmate? Well, with a little examination, we find out this pawn on H7 is stopping the checkmate. Okay, so then we say, well, how can we get that pawn out of there? Well, the most brutal way is to capture it, which is what we do. Queen takes, and now king has to take. Okay, now let's examine the position again. How many squares does the king have? The king has 3 squares. 1, 2, 3. H8, H7, and H6. Well, what kind of line is that? Well, that's a straight line. And what can attack along straight lines? Well, the rook. And if we move the rook to H3, all 3 squares, H8, H7, and H6 are taken away, and G6 and G8 are taken away by the knight. So is there any way to block? No. Is there any way to capture the rook? No. And so the game must be checkmate. Can't run, can't block, can't take. Checkmate. Checkmate number 2, the Arabian checkmate. This is the initial pattern of the Arabian mate. Now this is white to move and mate in 2 different ways. Well, the first move is knight goes to F6 and the king is attacked. So the king must move either to F8 or he must move to H8. If he moves to H8, take a second to see what move is the checkmate. Well, it's rook to H7. Okay, now we'll go back to the initial position. And here again, knight to F6, king to F8, and rook to F7 is checkmate. Very simple, but this checkmate happens quite a lot, so be on the lookout for it. The Arabian mate is probably the oldest checkmate known to us. It predates the actual game of chess which we play today, and it was found in an Arabian manuscript. hence the name Arabian Mate. Checkmate number 3, the corner checkmate. Now, let's examine it. What's happening? How many squares does the black king have? Well, the black king at the moment has 2 squares. He has the square G8 and F8. And what else is happening? Well, there's contact between the black queen and the white queen. So take a couple of seconds and see if you could figure it out. Stop the video, and we'll be right back. Okay, if you stop the video and solve the problem, congratulations. If you just want to see the answer, well, you lucky person, this is the time to see the answer. Okay, and now we're going to show it. The queen captures the queen on H8. Well, the king has no choice but to run into the corner and take the queen. Now, let's ask the question again. How many squares does the king have? Well, the king has 3 squares. It has the square it's on, H8. It has G8, the square next to it, and it has G7. Well, what piece is going to take away H8? Well, the knight can go to F7 and take away G. And what will happen about G8 and G7? Well, the rook takes care of that. So therefore, the answer is knight to F7. And that delivers the checkmate. If you solved that, congratulations. If you didn't, well, maybe next time. For the hook checkmate. Arrived at our final checkmate of the series. This is called the hook. So called because when you see it at the end, the pieces will resemble a hook around the king. Okay, now let's examine the position. How many squares does the black king have? He has 2 squares. He has E7 and E6. Well, what kind of line is that? That's a straight line. So that would lead us to the conclusion the answer is going to be either a queen or a rook. Okay, now this is rook and knight checkmate. So really, in the end, it will be checkmate with the rook. So here, it is checkmate in 2 moves. Stop the video and check out and see if you can solve it. White to move and checkmate in 2 moves. Well, here it is. That was your chance to solve it. If you solved it, congratulations. If you didn't solve it, well, now here's the answer. Okay, the answer is queen moves to E8 check. Well, now the rook must take the queen because the queen is taking away the squares E7 and E6. So the rook takes the queen. Unfortunately, there's a rook on the back rank, and that rook takes the other rook. And the game is over. It's checkmate because the squares E7 and E6 are taken away by the rook, and the king cannot move to any other square. So there you have it, checkmate with the rook and the knight, the 4 different ways in which you can do it. Our next series will be on the morphimates and mates like morphimates. Okay, so this is Steve Colding, Chess for Children, signing off and saying, hey, see you later.